today we're in Vauxhall 9 Elms. It's a former industrial area, pretty much right in the centre of London. It's next to the River Thames. We're going to go into this world. We're going to explore what was reasonably uninhabitable industrial space and is now reasonably uninhabitable residential space. Follow me. So I'm coming here into the centre of what is Vauxhall, and on the right you can see the bus station. And when this was built about a decade ago, it was a kind of major boost to an area that had previously been dominated by cars. What am I saying previously? This area is exceptionally dominated by cars. This is the pedestrian gateway to 9 Elms. It's a bit intimidating. I feel like I'm in a kind of canyon of residential speculation. So the story of 9 Elms goes back to 2008, when this area, which had been designated strategic industrial land, was rezoned. At the time it was described as a place for key workers. This is kind of blurred into just building anything. There was such a collapse in housing after the financial crash that the kind of merely building a single unit, no matter who was buying it, was seen as some kind of heroic statement. So today I'm joined by Rupesh Varsani, a maverick commentator.
I feel like I'm a refugee. I'm looking for the promised land, and you took me to 9 Elms.
In a way, you could say that this is strategically industrial activity now, because the modern industry of Britain is property speculation. The culture of 21st century Britain exists here in these speculative towers. This is called St George Tower.
So I think I've got it. We had strategic industrial land. We decided we needed more homes for key workers. Let's not get into the definition, but I suspect a key worker has to be here and exist. The next thing is we decided we'll build 20,000 of them.
Yes. Seems like a good number, round number.
That's quite a big number.
Yeah.
But then what happened when we decided to sell them all at about 900k each? What did we raise the salaries of the key workers so they could afford it? I think the mean salary is about 40k, or the median was about 40k.
40k.
It's quite a big jump from 40k to 900,000.
Well, I could imagine the only way someone earning 40k could possibly buy a 90k, 900k apartment is either that they're in a relationship with somebody who's earning an insane amount, or they have access to just raw cash to buy the thing.
And we sort of grow the cash here on these allotments?
Yeah, this is a symbolic money tree, which is, but the money tree is now evolved into a kind of shaggy wilderness bush. It's a new aesthetic. All along here was reasonably inaccessible by bike and pedestrian. It certainly wasn't a place where you could come and enjoy a vista or enjoy an experience. This is roughly where there had been a plan to create a pedestrian cycle bridge, and this pedestrian cycle bridge would have gone from this land here outside the new US Embassy by Kieran Timberlake Architects to this square over here called St George Square. There's no bridge here. This bridge has been talked about for more than 10 years. It's not been built yet. But what we do have here instead is this pavilion by Studio Weave Architects.
This is lovely.
And I'd say exactly, Rupesh, I'd agree with you. This is absolutely lovely. So these are just panels from a water tank. You can buy these in a catalogue, and they've treated them here with a kind of copper coating. And the copper coating means that they will turn green over time. It's ornamented. Ornamentation is back in architecture, and it lives here in 9 Elms. It's created a place where there hadn't been a place. The problem is it kind of falls into this trap that you see in places like Canary Wharf, where this public realm, public art is a kind of intervention to make up for other failings in a master plan. What we see here in 9 Elms is effectively not a very great master plan. They just kept the original road. You can see this busy road with the cars on it, and then they just plonked a load of buildings next to it. And then as it was being built, they realised, crumbs, the pedestrian bridge isn't being built. We've got this big road, we've got all these blocks. It's getting a bit monocultural. Let's plump this thing in to make it look a bit nicer. This is the United States Embassy. This building superseded the original US Embassy over in Grosvenor Square. It is a bit huge, frankly. I mean, it's visible in quite a sort of chunky way on the skyline. It has these suspended baffles, these kind of environmental shades which compound the imagination. It's impossible to really know what they do. Are they nice things to have your office behind? They look quite cool. There's a kind of sculptural reference to the kind of articulation that previously would have been done by concrete in the 1960s and is now done by space-age materials. But it's part of a wider development called Embassy Gardens. They're actually quite nice buildings. So we've got one here in green tiles, another brick building here with some red and orange tiles. Here's a very smart vase. What we can see here is a very interesting development across the railway tracks as well. This is the Rolf Jard Tower for Barrett.
Oh, this is what happens when you buy stuff offshore.
Yeah.
You don't actually know what's going on onshore.
This tower is by Rolf Jard Architects. Rolf Jard Architects are based in Oval. They're a local firm. Although you probably wouldn't see that kind of civic pride in what you're actually seeing ahead of you. I'm sorry, Rolf Jard, but that's just a fair comment, and it comes from a good place.
But the controversial thing is, does it actually matter? The average Wandsworth resident couldn't buy that.
Yeah.
Someone else has bought that.
Yeah.
And that someone else who's bought that probably then doesn't care what it looks like, or whether it's empty or not.
Well, the most important thing for the person who's bought that is the graph they were shown, which suggested that the property price would continue to increase.
I'm okay with expensive housing in the centre of a cultural city, provided there is some redistribution. And what would appear to be happening more and more is that we just isolate those two things.
I mean, to me, it doesn't look like the promise of a city. It kind of looks like an end. It looks like a corner which blocks off turns, rather than opening out into the kind of excitement and glamour that the buzzing lights of a skyline offer you, it just suggests a series of dead ends. This is what I see when I look at these buildings. So here we are on the southern fringe of Embassy Gardens. This is Bellway, so it's a different developer. So what you can see is a kind of consensus of what development is going to be, and it's going to be bricky, it's going to be tall, and it's going to have a little bit of public spaces in between it. Once again, we're right in the middle of 9 Elms Lane, and if you like driving, this is actually quite a good road. If you like walking, if you like cycling a bike, it is not a good place to be. But for some people, you know, you can't just have a swanky apartment. You need a swanky car to go with the swanky apartment. Thank you. So we're back on the river path, and this is River Light. This was one of the first residential schemes to really complete in entirety, and it was by a firm called St James, who are owned by Berkeley Group, who are kind of the legendary riverside developers of London. So again, this is a kind of expression of our contemporary built environment culture. It's about revering the river, but revering it for its ability to uplift property prices. And so this is a kind of reminder of what this zone was. This was a very industrial street. You get a feel for what this place was like in its industrial heyday. There are conveyor belts, there are workmen coming off shift. This is like a time traveling experience, but it won't be like that once this is all finished. It'll be a kind of swanky residential zone. And right before us is the edifice of the Grade 2 star listed Battersea Power Station, Giles Gilbert Scott's power station. This is a building which could have been demolished, but it was saved. It was saved for its architectural brilliance. For many decades it stood empty. It was an embarrassment. And now it's been restored. It's been restored by Wilkinson Eyre Architects, and this is a multi-billion-pound project. It will be a luxury home to 26 very wealthy, powerful individuals who buy the apartments that are in it. There'll be a rooftop restaurant, and there'll be one of London's largest shopping centres. Thanks for letting us through. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Billions of pounds being spent on construction, on engineering, on architecture. This is a mega project. Right now, underneath our feet, the final touches are being put on an extension to the Northern Line. This is a £400 million plus project. That's happening over there to the left. It will create a new Battersea Power Station, London Underground station. On the left is new residential development by Frank Gehry. Frank Gehry, who designed the Guggenheim in Bilbao. This is due to complete in 2021. This will be a new home for Apple. This will be the headquarters of Apple within a year. You've got more hoardings, Put, Play, Pedal, Riverside Walks. You don't need to think, you can rely on the hoardings to fill in the gaps. This was just industrial wasteland. Nobody would ever dream of standing here, let alone enjoying standing here, not being freaked out by the kind of ruins of contaminated soil and industry.
Do you think when this is all done, it actually will press the on button and all of a sudden everything will travel?
I think it's really hard because I think this crisis of coronavirus has happened at a time where we're rethinking what offices are and we're rethinking what cities are. But if I say anything by what I can see around me now, I would say pressing the on button on the Apple headquarters will do everything they dream it to be. It just won't necessarily be as socially sustainable as I would dream it to be.
Yeah, I agree. I feel slightly upset and slightly pleased. Pleased in that it is good for things to work. Upset because it's so sad to see potential not fulfil itself, and there was more potential than perhaps will be realised. That said, we're already started now, so it's nothing other than sort of schadenfreude to not want it to do well. And I think actually this will probably do well. It's just a shame it could have done so much more.
I love this place. Everything I have to say about it comes from a good place, and I know it does for you as well. Bump.